Welcome to the International Lawyers Network's webinar series. The ILN is an association of 91 high-quality, full-service, and specialized law firms with over 5,000 lawyers worldwide, of which your firm is a valued member. The network provides clients with easily accessible legal services in 67 countries on 6 continents. Today's webinar, Selling to Your Friends, How to Leverage Personal Contacts Without Compromising Trust, will allow you to discover communication techniques to explore professional opportunities naturally without jeopardizing your reputation or damaging your relationships. Our speaker today is David Ackert, who's the president of the Ackert Advisory and mentor to high-achieving professionals in the legal profession. He's developed and implemented business development programs for countless firms, from AmLaw 100s to local boutiques. Widely recognized as an e-learning pioneer in the legal field, David is the founder of Practice Boomers, a business development e-learning program and 2-time winner of the Legal Marketing Association's Your Honor Award. He's also the founder of Practice Pipeline, a pipeline management software platform that incorporates business development coaching. The combination of technology and coaching has become a hallmark of his programs. David has published and been quoted in such media as the Los Angeles Times, the National Review, the Daily Journal, the Wall Street Journal, Voice America, Attorney at Work, the Recorder, and the Los Angeles Business Journal. He serves as a guest lecturer at USC's Marshall School of Business, Carnegie Mellon, and at the UCLA School of Law. Some housekeeping notes for you before I turn it over to David. You will be muted throughout the program, so if you have any questions, you'll see that there's a chat box on your screen that you can type those into, and I'll share them with David. There is also going to be an interactive section where David will ask for your input, so please be ready to type that into your chat boxes as well as we make this a bit more interactive. A recording of the session along with a PDF of the slides will also be made available to you following the webinar. And with that, I will turn it over to David for today's presentation.
Thank you so much, Lindsay. Great to be back here with the ILN community. I had the pleasure of meeting some of you at the conference last year in New Orleans. So it makes this whole experience a little more personal for me now that I've had a chance to interact with some of you in person. Our agenda today is to discuss how to introduce a business dialogue into your personal relationships. This can often be awkward for certain people or certain relationships. There's a division between, oh, well, this is a personal relationship, this is a professional relationship, and yet we know that in the context of referrals and business, oftentimes the attention that we receive from our personal network can be incredibly valuable. Some of the referrals that we get can come from our family, our friends, our neighbors, and if we are not conscious about how we are mining those opportunities, we can sometimes find that they go elsewhere, or we simply are never the wiser for the opportunities that they have for us. So we'll be looking at how to introduce that business dialogue in a way that does not jeopardize the relationship. We'll also be looking at how to add value to your relationships beyond their immediate legal needs. You know, it's obviously never appropriate to come up to a personal relationship and say, hey, you know, I think you need a lawyer. But there are ways to add value to those relationships and get the wheels turning so that an appropriate back and forth is engaged. How to transition a conversation with a client into a business development exploration. I thought I'd throw this piece in simply because this presentation today is really focused on the segue, right? How to gracefully go from one kind of conversation to another. And so a lot of the techniques that work in a social context also work with clients. Sometimes we are so focused on serving the client that we don't put enough emphasis on developing new work from that client. And sometimes that's simply because we don't know how to broach that without seeming like we are being overbearing or greedy or whatever the consideration might be. And then finally, how to explore cross-selling opportunities with your clients in a friendly, non-salesy way. Again, just an expansion on the prior bullet, but I think you'll find these various techniques to be applicable to some of the relationships in your personal and professional network. So this is a question for all of you. As Lindsay said, I'm hoping to make this a little more interactive. So I'd ask you to find the chat box on your WebEx platform and just type out some of the challenges that you have found when trying to transition a personal relationship into a business opportunity. So what are the considerations or the challenges that come forward for you? Is it that you're concerned that you'll come across a certain way? Is it that you're concerned that the relationship might turn sour? Is it that you are simply concerned that you don't know how to bring it up, don't know how to broach a business topic with a personal relationship? Curious to see what your thoughts and concerns are in this regard. So I'll ask Lindsay to go ahead and let me know when some of those answers have come in, and we will look to weave them in to today's presentation so that I'm addressing your specific concerns as much as possible today. So Lindsay, just let me know as you see some of these flash across your screen.
Sure. Somebody says that they don't know how to bring it up and don't want to screw up the friendship.
Yeah, that's very common. And, you know, there's a technique that we're going to focus on today that will specifically give you a way to bring it up that won't screw up the friendship, right? It's going to be completely in line with the kinds of experiences that you provide as a friend so that it seems completely natural and is in fact aligned with ultimately the value that you want to provide in this personal relationship. Good, and as others come across, just let me know, Lindsay.
Sure, we also have best timing to make the approach.
Yes, good, timing. That's another great component of this that we will definitely address. Thank you for that. So sometimes we find ourselves trapped in something of a binary relationship model. That is to say, there's professional or personal, right? And we have it like it's one or the other. And sometimes we experience a nice blend of the two. For instance, there might be a client who over the years we have come to regard as a friend. Or perhaps there is that friend who came to us for a legal need, and now they see us as a trusted advisor, just as they see us as their, you know, fishing buddy or, you know, their old high school friend or however that relationship initially began. But those tend to be the exception to the rule, right? Otherwise, we are pretty clear on, okay, here are the people I'm inviting to my birthday party, and here are the people who I would send a notice to as it pertains to my firm. And those are two very different lists. And typically when we ask this question, which transition is easier to navigate, professional to personal or personal to professional, most people would say professional to personal. That is to say, it's much easier to, assuming the chemistry is there, evolve a client relationship or a referral source relationship into a friendship than it is to evolve a friendship into a referral source or a client. If any of you disagree with that, by all means, let Lindsay know and she'll pass that along to me. But generally, as we're having this conversation out in the legal profession, this is the feedback that we receive. And one of the tricks here, and really it's not a trick, it's a challenge, I would call it. There's no formal agreement in a personal relationship. Only an informal understanding at best. You know, if you really thought about, okay, what's your objective with your friendship? Or what's the end game here? You can't really answer that question very effectively, where you could probably answer it with most of your key clients because you put some thought into that, and ultimately the whole relationship began with a contract, with an engagement letter, right? So the terms of this relationship, the conditions of this relationship were already set out at the beginning of it. And so to build upon that, to renegotiate the terms or to watch those terms evolve, that's a fairly linear and logical process. But when you're not really sure, you know, I just like them, so they're my friend. I like hanging out with them. I feel good when I'm around them. I mean, these are all feelings and intangibles. It's very difficult to put any kind of agreement around that. And yet, you know, if we're looking to transition a friend into a referral source or even a friend into a client, at some point we have to cross that boundary so that there's a little more formality in the relationship. And the way that we do that is to introduce behaviors and language that redefine the scope of the agreement, such as it is, so that it becomes more dynamic than just this binary of you're either this or you're that. You're either a professional relationship or a personal relationship. And again, the way to start to bring a more three-dimensional or perhaps holistic approach to this is to introduce some behaviors and some language that you might not have done in the past, right? You might have said, oh, well, this is a friend, and so here are the list of things I'm going to talk to them about, and here are the list of things I would never bring up. And here's a professional relationship, and, you know, perhaps that list is a little bit longer, but again, there are certain things that I wouldn't necessarily speak to this person about on a personal side. And we see this really play out in social media. Is this a LinkedIn connection or a Facebook connection? And I would urge you to consider that that line is starting to blur. People are using Facebook more and more for professional contacts, you know, those people with whom certainly they are business relationships first, but you're very friendly with them. It is more appropriate today to invite them into your Facebook network than it was, say, 5 or 10 years ago. 5 or 10 years ago, we had a much more binary relationship when it comes to social media, and we're starting to recognize that it doesn't have to be that way. And some of this was actually predicated by the social media engines when they started to sell advertisement on both platforms for, frankly, whatever you wanted to sell. Now, LinkedIn is still strictly professional. I think it would be, you know, weird to be chatting with your best friend via LinkedIn unless you just happen to lose their email or something. But it's not so weird anymore to invite some of your friendly business contacts to connect with you on Facebook. So just a hint as to how that might look, and also a hint as to one of the techniques that I'll be introducing in a moment, which in fact involves Facebook. Now, a quick note here, the default position that we take when there isn't a clear strategy is that we just bury our head in the sand. We don't deal with it at all. You know, if we don't know when the best timing is for one of your comments earlier, or we don't want to screw up the relationship so we don't really know what to say, we don't say anything at all. And the timing is never. So it's really important to have a strategy, and I'm going to be sharing 8 strategies today with you that introduce this business development conversation and behavior with your personal contacts. And it is not my expectation that all 8 of these will be home runs for you. You may find that you like some of them don't seem right for you. I would also urge you to consider that some of them will be appropriate in the context of certain relationships, but not other relationships. So take this as an opportunity to customize your own approach with these 8 components. So the first one is to share announcements. And when I say announcements, I mean firm communications. Hey, I was just made partner, or hey, we just added a partner to our firm, and I'm so excited because this firm means a lot to me, and here we are, we're growing. Or hey, we just opened up a new office, and I just wanted to let everybody know because this is a wonderful professional milestone for myself and my partners. There is nothing wrong with blasting that out on Facebook or including your personal contacts in that general announcement. And what it does is it just gives them one more opportunity to be reminded as to what it is that you do for a living, and that the services that you offer are available to them as well. It's a very subtle way of doing it. You're not saying to them, oh, and you need to hire me as a lawyer, or even saying, oh, and by the way, if you ever have a need, please look me up. That's a different strategy. It's not this one. This is really just a general blast. Hey, everyone, this is something that's happening. And I do recommend using Facebook as one of the means of making that communication. Also, if you blog or write articles, I think, you know, the way that you position the distribution of that content is absolutely it makes it an appropriate message to the various social circles in your life. So, for instance, you might say, hi, everyone, I'm really delighted that this article of mine was just picked up in Above the Law, or I was just referenced in, Attorney at Work, or whatever it is. Again, it's just you saying to your contacts, hey, I just had this wonderful professional moment. I hope you'll celebrate this with me. Now, some lawyers get a little self-conscious about this. Well, aren't I just kind of, thumping my chest? Isn't that sort of gauche or over the top? I would urge you to consider that that's your consideration. It usually isn't your friend's consideration. Your friends are delighted that something good happened for you, just as you would be delighted if they broadcasted that they just had another child, or they had a grandchild, or their son just graduated from college. I mean, really, who cares, right? That's their business. But this is the one of those informal conditions of a friendship, which is that when somebody else has a victory, you celebrate. So I wouldn't be so shy about celebrating these victories more publicly in your social circle, whether it's an article or a blog or an announcement. And again, you know, we start to get a little jaded about this, especially as we become partners, we become more senior in our careers. We think, I got published in another article, so what? It's the 4th one this year. But the fact of the matter is that's pretty cool for people who don't get published every quarter, right? So that's kind of significant news. They might look up to that and say, wow, you're really on fire here. That's amazing. I've never been published in a, you know, a trade publication or something like that. That's really cool. And so all it does is just elevate your position in their mind, their estimation of you, gives them one more opportunity to give you a high five and cheer you along as you continue to enjoy and revel in your success. So that's this piece. There's another component to it, which is don't shy away from asking about their victories, right? Sometimes we have this tendency of not asking some of the questions about people's professional world simply because we want to keep it light or we want to keep it friendly. And this segues into another technique that I'm going to share with you in a moment. But it's important for us to have at least the opportunity to explore other people's personal and professional lives if we really are their friend, right? We want to know everything about them and be able to help them or at least show interest in everything that is going on in their world. So this leads us to ask them how things are going at work. No, really, ask them. Here's how it usually goes, right? Hey, Chuck, you know, good to see you again. Boy, this barbecue turned out pretty well. Good turnout. You know, how are the kids? How's the wife? Oh, great. Glad to hear things going well. How are things at work? And Chuck will say, oh, you know, business as usual. Or Chuck will say, busier than ever. Or, man, I'm just crazy busy this quarter. And we squander that opportunity. That is an opening for us to find out what's going on. But instead we say things like, oh, I know what you mean. Sure is busy at my work too. And then, you know, crickets for a few seconds, and we go back to talking about how, you know, little Johnny is growing up and starting to play hockey this year. You know, it's like we go right back into the social because we think that that is the only paradigm in which we really have permission to have a dialogue with our friends. But if Chuck says busier than ever, then the next question out of your mouth should be, really, what's going on? Or, you know, business as usual, really. So it sounds like you guys are having sort of a flat year, or there hasn't been much change at the company. There's nothing wrong with asking these questions. Look, Chuck spends most of his life at his company, right? If he's, you know, working at a C-level or whatever level he happens to be working at the company. And by the way, he doesn't have to be in the legal department to be a good contact for you, because he can refer you to the appropriate colleague in his company. So ask questions, find out what's going on, find out what their needs are from a business perspective. This harkens back to prior webinars that we've shared together. For those of you who've tuned in to other webinars that I've given through ILN, you know, these questions about, like, so, you know, where's the company headed, and what are the objectives, and what's your objective with the company? You know, what are your goals? Do you plan to stay here for a while? Is this really working out for you? Are you happy with the direction things are going? You know, these are the kinds of questions a good friend would ask. Because you're concerned and because you want to make sure that you, as a business advisor to your clients, can bring that same value to this friendship with Chuck. So don't squander the opportunity to have a meaningful conversation about how things are going at work, what's going right, what's going wrong, and of course, it could easily lead into a conversation about, well, gosh, you know, if you ever need any help in this regard, I hope you know you can always turn to me. So, you know, here's this question. Ask yourself, do you really understand the business needs of your friends and neighbors? Do you really? Or have you been a little more skimming the surface, as it were, when it comes to that topic with those people? If that's the case, I urge you to express more curiosity. I think it's completely appropriate to invite your friends, even your family to some extent, maybe not your mother, but, you know, if you have a brother-in-law or somebody who you're related to through family who is in a professional, working in a professional context, invite them to a Friends of the Firm event. This obviously would be an event that would include your referral sources and include perhaps some key clients. Most of your firms are already doing this sort of thing, but don't shy away from including your neighbors who are professionals. You know, even if your neighbor is a dentist, or even if your neighbor is, I don't know, has a business that operates in a sector that you don't specialize in. Don't forget, 6 degrees of separation. The people in your network can connect you to the people that you want to know. And a lot of times in the legal profession, we get so focused on, okay, here are the 10 companies that we want to do business with, or here are our 10 key clients. Let's make sure that we're expanding those relationships and cross-selling the heck out of them. And we turn our sort of a blind eye to the opportunities that exist in our social networks and that are perhaps even in some ways easier for us to acquire if only we're able to get over our hang-ups on having those conversations. And an easy way to do this is to invite them to a friend of the firm event. Obviously now people are going to be standing around talking about the firm. Your referral sources are going to be talking about, you know, what a great person you are. Your clients are going to be talking about how wonderfully you and your partners have solved their problems. And this will spark opportunities for your friends, your family, whoever you've invited here, to say, gosh, I didn't even realize you did that. You know, we've got an employment issue at our company. I should probably connect you to somebody there. Or, yeah, you know, my company's been doing a lot of merging and acquiring lately. You know, I'm not really all that involved in it, but I'd be happy to connect you to the person who is. They're right down the hall from me, and we have lunch all the time. These are the kinds of opportunities that will only come forward if you place your personal contacts in a context where it is more natural for them to better understand what you do, and it's even better if it doesn't come directly from you. So if you're not doing this sort of thing, consider doing it. I think you'll find even if they don't come to the event, they will be delighted that they were invited, and they'll show a little more interest in what you do professionally simply by virtue of the fact that you are willing to include them. I always, you know, when somebody invites me to an event, I'm always flattered. I may not want to go, and I may not go, but it puts them on my radar in a slightly different way. And I start to think to myself, oh, I'm on some sort of short list of theirs, right? I'm not just some random contact. They actually thought that I would add some value to this event. Wow, that's nice. I appreciate that. And so I shift the way that I think about them just a little bit when I am invited to the events that they throw. Number 4, offer to help their contacts. Now, this will be a conversation that you'll have to time just right, you know, back to the issue of timing, but it could work well on the heels of any problem that they're sharing with you, especially if you're asking how's business and they say, oh, it's just crazy and, you know, the company is going up and down or whatever they share with you. It's fine to say, you know, maybe this goes without saying, but if anyone you know or if you ever need help, just call me. I'd be happy to do what I can. You can, even if this is part of your policy, you know, give them a free consultation. I wouldn't charge that initial consultation fee. You know, you put it out there that if you ever need anything, please know that I'm here for you. Just pick up the phone, call me. I'm going to make it really easy for us to explore whether or not I can be of help. Again, you know, look, if they had a plumbing problem and you were really good with, you know, a wrench, you'd say, by the way, if you ever have trouble, knock on my door. I'll come over with my toolkit and I'll help you because I know this isn't your forte and it happens to be mine. So how is this any different? All you're doing is simply extending to them that you're more than happy to be of help should the appropriate opportunity present itself. Sometimes they don't know exactly what you do, or they don't really, maybe they've had some sort of hang up about, well, yeah, but he's my neighbor, or he's my friend, or he's my brother-in-law. I probably shouldn't reach out to him. You know, I don't want to mix personal and business. But if you extend it, then that shifts it for them. They realize, oh, the invitation is there, the opportunity is there. Maybe I should rethink my concern or the assumption that I've made about whether or not the other person is comfortable with this. So extending that olive branch, as it were, creates a little bit more of a synergistic dynamic when it comes to this sort of thing. Number 5, requesting introductions to their warm market connectors. So this term warm market connector means, you know, in their marketplace, their community, there are people who are connectors. They might be, for instance, if they are highly active in their church, it could be one of the more influential board members, or It could be the person who heads up a committee at a board that they belong to, or it could be somebody at their firm who's particularly influential. So these are sort of the influencers, right, in their warm market. And if they're not a prospect themselves, you could ask for an introduction to one of these warm market connectors or influencers in their network. You might say, by the way, you know, I don't actually know the managing partner at your accounting firm, but I'd like to, because sometimes, you know, my law firm and accounting firms find that there's good referral synergy there. Would you be open to making that introduction? Sometimes we just don't ask, right? We don't bother to make that ask again because we have ourselves locked in this notion that, oh, they're a family member or they're a neighbor or whatever it is. I have a cousin who works at one of the big 4 consulting firms. He works at PwC. And it took me years to finally it just didn't dawn on me. I was like, oh, PwC, my firm could totally work for them. I should ask my cousin if he'd be willing to make a couple of introductions. He was delighted to. There was no issue whatsoever. And it led to a number of really valuable connections for me. Why didn't I ask him 10, 15 years prior? I don't know. It just didn't occur to me because I kept categorizing him as my cousin who happened to work for a big 4 rather than a potential referral source or a person who might help me penetrate that community more effectively. So again, consider the people who fall into these personal or familial categories as potential introducers to the influencers in their network. You know, number 6 here, ask for advice, I think, is a way to be a little more transparent, perhaps, in the concern that you might have without necessarily putting the person themselves in the hot seat. But if this really is a concern for you, like I don't really understand, you know, what the best timing is on this sort of thing, or I don't really understand how to do this without damaging the relationship, there's nothing wrong with asking one of your friends about their take on it, right? It may not be the friend who you directly have in mind for this ask, but to turn to a friend and say, you know, I'd like to ask your advice on something. I was thinking of broaching the topic of a business relationship with, and then, you know, our mutual acquaintance, Sally, because, you know, she works at PwC or she works at this company or she's in-house counsel or whatever she is. But I'm not sure how to approach something like that. I'm concerned about timing. I'm concerned about damaging the relationship. You know Sally. You know me. What's your take? And what you'll find is that a lot of times the advice that someone who understands the social dynamics that are at play for you can provide some insight. And by the way, they may just say, oh, yeah, don't ever do it. Sally hates that. And then it turns out your instinct was dead on. Or more than likely, they're going to say, well, why don't you just ask her? I mean, Sally's always been very helpful for me in a professional context. And, you know, she's not going to offer it necessarily. But if you go to her, I've found her to be very responsive and very supportive. So, you know, I would urge you not to make assumptions as to how things will play out in terms of either timing or relationship or reaction. Do a little bit of due diligence here. Do some research. And ask around and see what others who know that person might say about it. And if you really want to go transparent, there is the transparent approach. This might be something along the lines of, my firm brought in a consultant to talk to us on this webinar about how to initiate a business conversation with a friend or family member. It felt a little like group therapy online. But, you know, one of the themes was how to ask for what you want without damaging the relationship. And you came to mind. So I thought I would just see what you think about that. Or I've been wanting to speak with you about doing business together, but I keep putting it off because I didn't want to seem appropriate. And I just want you to know our relationship is very important to me. So if this is uncomfortable or awkward for you in any way, please let me know and we can just change the subject. But, you know, you got to know it's been on my mind. Sometimes that's all it takes to let the tension out of the dynamic, right? You're just really honest and you're transparent with them, and they appreciate that you had enough respect for them to assume that they would have the maturity to be able to navigate this conversation. And you're kind of, you know, you're doing a little bit of a mea culpa here, and you're saying, look, maybe I've been a little silly about this, but I just really care about you, and I didn't want it to, you know, seem like I was being overly, I don't know, Machiavellian or selfish or whatever the right word is. So just, I want you to know that I was thinking about this, and, you know, if you're open to having this conversation, just give me the green light. If not, we won't talk about it. And, they're either going to say, yeah, I think we should probably just skip that one. And great, you skip it, now you know. Or they're going to say, what are you talking about, you idiot? Yeah, sure, what can I do for you? And then you realize that this has all been in your head. Also, number 8, ask for business or referrals. Some of our relationships will respond positively to a direct request for their assistance. Would you mind helping me with something? My firm is encouraging me to add more clients to the practice. Do you know any companies that fit this description in your network? You can even use LinkedIn for this. You could actually look up their LinkedIn contacts, or if they have their settings calibrated such that you can't see their contacts, then you could just ask them to do a quick search for you. Hey, listen, I'm really interested in meeting companies in such and such a space, and particularly legal decision makers within those companies. Could you just go to your LinkedIn and type in, general counsel, healthcare, and see if anything comes up? Any introductions there would really be appreciated. So you just make it really easy for them to be a referral source for you and to ask for a referral or some business. You might even move into, so who might I speak with at your company about their legal needs? And, is that an introduction you'd be comfortable making? Again, guys, this stuff is going to sound pretty obvious because you have these dialogues all the time with your referral sources, I would assume. But sometimes we don't recognize that our friends, our social circle can also be referral sources if we can just get over our consideration there. Okay, so this is one of those interactive moments. I'm going to ask you to share what has worked for you. Perhaps one of these strategies or a version of one of these strategies has worked for you. Perhaps you have found that you actually do have a pretty robust relationship, professional relationship or professional dynamic with a personal relationship, and you could put in a word or two about how that has played out. Or perhaps this would be an opportunity to talk about, yeah, there was someone who I once broached this with and it went pretty well, or maybe it didn't go very well. Any of this is relevant to the topic and would be interested to know what has worked for you. So the first question that I asked is, where is the concern, right? And then there we had timing, and we had don't want to damage the relationship. So now, what has worked for you? Have you ever had an experience where you've been able to convert a personal relationship into some professional value? So Lindsay, let me know if we get any responses to this one.
Sure. While we're waiting for those to come in, there was one, you answered one of the other responses that we had gotten about not wanting the approach to sound too salesy. I think you really covered that sort of all across your strategies. But one of the other things that came up was a hesitation to mix business with friendship, which I think sort of comes before the strategy piece. And so I'd be curious to hear what you would suggest for people who are, even before they get to the point where they've made the decision that they want to reach out to their friends and family and their more social networks with these strategies. How do they overcome that feeling of not wanting to mix business with those networks?
Sure. I would just ask if that is a principle or a value, a personal value that you hold dear, or if that is a mental construct you've come up with because you have this concern and you simply haven't navigated a way through it, right? I mean, if you, in your heart of hearts, you just don't think this is right and it's an ethical issue for you and no one should be mixing, relationships that are personal with business relationships, I can completely respect that, and you have every right to have that position if that's a core value for you. But I would guess that for most people who have that thought, it's simply because they haven't come up with a strategy that works for them yet. It's that earlier image I was being a little bit, tongue-in-cheek with the guy burying his head in the sand. But, I think we see that where we come up with a convenient perception or a convenient philosophy for ourselves simply because we don't know how to traverse this. So we tell ourselves, well, then it just simply shouldn't be done. But, the strategy that I think might be a good first step would be to ask for advice. Ask other people in your personal network if they hold that same opinion or that same value. And if not, what are the exceptions? What do they look like? And how did those dynamics come to be? In fact, if you really want to get over this, I would encourage you to turn to someone who is in your personal network who has clearly found a graceful way of broaching the business topic because they're doing business with other people in the family or other people in the friend network. And, you know, get a little bit of advice and mentorship and get a sense of how they approach it. You may find that borrowing a page out of their book comes much more naturally than simply trying to, you know, just get over it. So again, I would just urge you to consider, is this a real core value? If so, then, you know, you are exactly where you should be. No need to try to violate that. But if it's more in the category of a convenient sort of construct or a little bit of an excuse, then I would urge you to seek out one of these strategies that are a little bit more accessible for you and dip your toe in the pool, because as I said earlier, there are a lot of opportunities to be gleaned, opportunities to be seized from that personal network. You know, one of the things my wife and I started to do several years ago when we realized that we had many social relationships with business potential is that we started to throw dinner parties. And it's a sort of a variation on one of the earlier themes about a Friends of the Firm event. But we would invite some friends who were working at companies and organizations that, you know, so they were professionals, right? They had some sort of professional agenda or career of their own to nurture. And then we would invite others who were really more on the spectrum leaning toward professional relationships for us, but with whom we were certainly friendly. And we would just put them all at the dinner table and a couple of bottles of wine in. Everybody are fast friends. I mean, it's not all that unlike the experience that I had in New Orleans with many of you in the ILN network, where, you know, definitely everybody comes to the table with a business agenda, a referral agenda, but by the end of the thing, we've all raised a glass or two, and we've shared a meal or two. We've gotten to know each other personally. In some cases, I met some of your spouses, and, you know, it's like, okay, we're kind of friends now. And I would have no problem sharing some personal anecdotes about my life with you, whereas before that experience, it would have been a little awkward to do so. So a lot of this evolution can occur. Again, this goes back to the Facebook blur, right? A lot of this, this evolution can occur simply by starting to treat people who are in one category as if they were in the other category, and starting to lean them in that direction simply by being more social with our professional relationships and introducing professional topics into our personal ones.
Great. That's very helpful.
So any brave souls responding to what has worked for them?
No, nobody's put their hands up.
Okay. All right. Well, apparently we're in the right webinar here today, because we're working on coming up with solutions to the problem. So we'll continue this. So again, as I mentioned earlier, you know, we have this binary relationship model, and it even shows up in our client relationships. We experience a disconnect between client service and client development. So if we could just serve our clients all day long, most of us would do that, and we would not broach the client development topic. Now, obviously, there are exceptions to this. There are people who are just natural rainmakers, and they enjoy having business development and client development conversations with their clients, but, you know, they statistically are fewer and far between and further between than the rest of the firm. So most people like the very cut and dried context of a service relationship with the client, and yet at the same time, every lawyer has an interest in growing their book of business and committed to keeping their existing clients happy. So can we take these two dynamics, an interest in growing your book of business and your commitment to keeping your existing clients happy, and find a way to couple them such that you are able to find this segue that enables you to have a more effective client development conversation with your clients? Well, the way that would look is that while you are working on a matter with a client, so parenthetically here, you know, a lot of firms will do this where they'll say, okay, we finished working on, you know, we settled the case, or we won the case, or we finished this particular matter, and so now we're going to have the celebratory dinner, and then hopefully at that point we're going to be able to pitch some new work. But I would urge you to consider that when you have finished on the matter with the client, you become much lower of a priority for them than when you're actually working on the matter for them. Now you can see, you're constantly on the phone with them while the matter is in play, and you're emailing back and forth all the time. So they very much want to talk to you at that time because you're helping to solve an immediate problem. But after the deal is done, oh my goodness, there's, the lawyer wants to have dinner, and the lawyer wants to come and pop by, and, they're going to probably want to get some new work. And, that's fine. If the client really likes you and wants to continue the relationship, they'll make time for it. But you can see that they've already moved on to the next matter, or they've moved on to the next emergency. And so that's not the ideal time to try to develop new work with the client. The ideal time is while you are working with them on the current matter. But you have to be careful about how you broach this so that it doesn't seem like your agenda on growing your business is overshadowing your commitment to keeping your clients happy. So when you're working with the client on an existing matter, let's say you're on the phone with them or you're having a strategy meeting with them or whatever it might be, finish discussing the matter. So you're at the end of the call now, or you're at the end of the meeting, and then you will say, listen, do you just have another minute for a quick off-the-clock question? So that transition, that gear shift is very important, because what it does is it signals to the client that, okay, first of all, I'm not billing you anymore. We are transitioning from a formal context to an informal context, right? That binary model from earlier. So we're going to transition to an informal context now, and I'm going to ask you a quick question. You've also set a time contract here. You're just asking for a minute or two. So they're busy, but certainly they can spare a minute or two, especially after you've just been so helpful in the context of whatever advice you just gave on the matter. And then you would ask a question or make a request. Now, Lindsay, you'll have access to this deck, so after the fact, you can blast this out to everyone so that they have this. But again, this is a series of questions or requests that you can ask the client while you're working on the matter with them that will help to expand the client relationship. And some of these will resonate for you, some of them will not. Again, it's just like the strategies earlier. Pick the ones that work for you. So the first one, I want to make sure I'm taking every opportunity to understand the various nuances of your business and keep an eye for potential liabilities. What other kinds of issues or challenges has the company been experiencing besides the one that we're working on right now? So this is your opportunity to offer them information or advice or intelligence on some of the other issues that are keeping them up at night. You might find that one of the things that you can do is introduce them to a partner who could help them deal with that issue. Perhaps there's a relevant article or some other materials or a CLE or something that you could bring to them that would help them navigate this issue. But this is absolutely appropriate to ask while you're working with them because, again, you want to make sure that you understand as much about the company as possible and make sure that if there are any other issues that the company is dealing with that might in some way play into the matter that you're working on, you have an awareness of that. It also just shows a general interest in the company's welfare and well-being. And as their trusted advisor, I would posit to you that it is your job to make sure that your client is successful, not just on the matter they engaged you in, but that their health as an organization long-term is also on your agenda, on your radar. Here's the next one. Our firm has a vast professional network. Are there any introductions I could make that would be valuable to you? Might be a CPA firm, commercial insurance, PE firm. So here's just a classic. I'd love to make sure that you have the benefit of my network. Is there anybody that comes to mind that I could help out with? And, sometimes they'll say no, but thanks for offering. Or sometimes they'll say, you know what, if you know anybody who can help out with pensions, that would be really helpful because right now ours is a mess and that's been another issue that we've really been trying to figure out. So that may not be work that your firm does. You may not have an ERISA practice at your law firm, but you could certainly refer somebody in, but only if you ask. This is probably music to Lindsay's ears because it plugs right into the ILN philosophy of if you are aware of your client's needs, then you can bring other referral sources to them and help them succeed and help them thrive so that they're around next year when they have another matter for you. Next one. Some of our other clients do this. I want you also to be aware. We have beautiful offices in, fill in the blank, Century City, downtown, wherever it is that your offices are. Let me know if you'd be interested in having us host any upcoming events for your department. So here you're offering your facilities to host a meeting or an event or whatever it is that you might be willing to open your doors up to. Now, this is a great opportunity because now they are able to bring a group of their people, maybe some of their strategic allies, to your office, and you can throw an event for them, and you can meet a lot of the people who are potentially going to be prospects for your firm. I'm interested in attending any upcoming industry-related conferences or trade shows. Do you know of any, and are you attending? This is an opportunity for you to sponsor or join them at a conference. Sponsor would be even better, where they say, oh, yeah, every year we attend E3, or, oh, yes, there's the National Healthcare Consortium conference that we go to. And you say, well, gosh, that sounds great. You know, obviously we're working with you, so healthcare is very much an industry sector that we're very invested in. And I would love to attend. In fact, why don't we sponsor your attendance this year? What that means is that you'll be able to follow them around to all of the various events that they go to, and they will introduce you as their healthcare lawyer, or fill in the blank, whatever it might be. And that's the best testimonial and lead-in to a conversation with someone else who might be of interest at that conference that you could hope for. I noticed a piece in the media concerning your company or industry. Can we schedule a separate meeting or call to discuss potential implications? Again, remember, this is on the heels of you've just talked to them about a matter. You're just asking for an off-the-clock minute or two to share something with them. Turns out you saw an article that you want to talk to them about, but you don't want to take up more than the minute or two that you just requested. So can we schedule a separate meeting or call to discuss the potential implications of this article? This is an opportunity for you to offer some risk assessment. It might translate into some CLE or introduction to another firm partner. And then finally, are there any hires you're looking to make in your legal department in the near future? I'd like to keep an eye out for you. This is an offering for recruiting, and we are quite literally turning a friend into a client here. Because if they say, well, you know, it's funny you should mention that because, you know, we just lost one of our in-house lawyers in our corporate department, so we're in the process of looking for someone else, you can say, well, gosh, you know, among my lawyer network, I know quite a few lawyers who might be appropriate for that. Why don't I put out a few feelers and see if I can help you fill that position? Now, your unemployed lawyer friend, or perhaps lawyer friend who was really dissatisfied with the firm that they're currently working at, finds their way into a position as corporate counsel at your client's legal department. Of course, they're going to be looking out for you from that point forward. Now, if you want a little help with this, you can just go to LinkedIn and type in corporate counsel or whatever the keyword might be based on what your client said they were looking for, and then use the drop-down menu and click on jobs. And what will happen there is that it will show you all of the job, people who are either looking for jobs or job openings that are tied to your network. So I just did this recently and found that there's a company called Sunrun connected to my network, first-tier connection, and they're looking for corporate commercial counsel. So that was an opportunity for me to reach out to them and say, hey, I know a whole lot of lawyers. Do you want me to be keeping an eye out for you to help fill that position? So I can help a friend here. I can also help another friend connect to a new job, and it can be a real win-win for all parties. So you guys know I'm a big advocate of LinkedIn. I just think that it's one of these underutilized tools that can help us in a lot of ways that we sometimes are not aware of. So these are some strategies to consider in terms of requests. There are also, in terms of offerings, there are also some requests that you can make, again, in the context of, hey, do you just have a minute or two? I want to ask or offer something off the clock or ask you a question off the clock. So this question would be, I'm expanding my network of professional resources. Would you introduce me to the firms you outsource work to? So this would be an introduction to their CPA firm, or an introduction to their commercial broker, introduction to their strategic consultant. These are likely good referral sources for you. Obviously, if there are non-competing law firms who you want to meet, meeting the ones who your client has engaged is a good place to start. You already share a client, and the likelihood of a business synergy is high. I'm going to be in the area next week, month, whatever it is. Can we arrange a visit to your offices so I can get a better understanding of the culture and your team? While I'm there, I might like to present on fill in the blank CLE You have a site visit now that you've scheduled. You're deepening client relationships, developing new inroads, demonstrating expertise. This was a quick off-the-clock offering that you just made, and the likelihood is that they will say yes if you have a CLE that's of interest to them, or they're just fans of the idea that you're going to get to know their business better and therefore be a more valuable advisor to them. Are you a Dodgers fan, Lakers fan? Fill in your favorite sports team here. I have season tickets, and I'd like to invite you and your family to join us this month. This is a request for social time, again, converting that professional relationship into more of a personal one, and you can deepen the relationship over a few innings or whatever it is that you'd like to watch. Are you involved in any charitable organizations? I'm looking to get more involved. These are volunteer opportunities, and what you might find here is a board seat next to a client, or sitting on a board full of other prospective clients and referral sources as shepherded in through the client that you're talking to right now. Finally, I want to make sure we're doing everything we can to meet your needs. If you have any feedback I should take back to the managing partner, or if you're the managing partner, any feedback you'd like to share with me, this is an opportunity to nip issues at the bud. Unless prompted, most clients don't offer client feedback, at least not thorough feedback. They tell you when something's wrong, but they won't tell you when something's going well or when something is going just okay, and that it's something to keep an eye on. Getting positive feedback from your clients, by the way, is a fantastic exercise in knowing where to emphasize more of your energy in the future. You will bolster loyalty. You will improve the chances of them referring you into their network, and you put yourself in a great position to even ask for those referrals. So client feedback is another one of those things that firms do probably less of than they should. Well, we're almost out of time here, so I thought I would wrap up there. But Lindsay, if the attendees have any questions that they would like to ask on this topic, we still have a minute or two to address them.
Sure, I will let them ask those. I will add, we had a couple of things come in terms of what has worked for people and what has helped that I'll share with you. In terms of what has worked, somebody said that being a connector and making introductions that help others, which is something you suggested, even if business doesn't come to me, this shows I'm well connected and credible.
Yeah, that's a great one.
Yeah, and in terms of what has helped, asking a professional in another industry to co-author an article helps them with their professional development and strengthens the relationship.
Yes, very, very smart. What that also does is give you an opportunity to cross-pollinate into each other's networks, right? Because if you co-author an article with them, they're going to blast that out to their network. You're going to blast it out to yours. You've now given each other some positive exposure. You can translate that into perhaps a co-presentation on the same topic and, you know, offer a CLE. If you do the co-presentation, by the way, they may not even be a lawyer, so it might not qualify for CLE, or it might not be a legal topic per se. But the co-presentation is really powerful because what you can do is you can say to your co-author, hey, listen, you put 5 prospects in the room, I'll put 5 prospects in the room, and now each of us will have 5 prospects for each other, right? So what I mean by that is these are 5 people who may already be clients of mine or maybe, you know, relationships that I've already mined here, but they're good prospects for my co-author. And the same would be true of what and the people that they would bring in. So it's a guaranteed target-rich market, plus all of those 5 people that your co-author invited for this presentation have someone, your co-author, who can say, oh, my goodness, you should really meet so-and-so. They're great. I've worked with him in various contexts. We co-authored this article together. We're co-presenting. I highly recommend him. So it's not even you showing up and presenting to a group of strangers. You already have an advocate in the room.
Yeah, that's great. I've also used, I know, blog posts if I wanted to introduce myself to someone. If they regularly write or speak on topics, you can read what they're writing and quote them and respond in your own articles and blog posts, and then use that as a way to introduce yourself, usually using LinkedIn is another suggestion.
Yes, good. Thank you.
I'm not seeing any questions come in, but if anybody has any as they leave this webinar and think of them, please let me know and I can pass those on to David. I'd like to thank David so much for today's presentation on a really interesting topic, and thanks also to our participants for all of your engagement today. That's been really great.
Absolutely.
As I mentioned earlier, a recording of this session and a PDF of the slides will be circulated in the next day. David is also joining us for a full series of webinars this year with the next webinar, Harnessing the Full Potential of a Professional Network, happening on June 22nd at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. So we invite you to join us for that and future webinars with David as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lindsay. Always a pleasure.